Good morning, everybody. Hopefully, you had a good weekend. Um, and hopefully, your day is going to go as well as it possibly could. Uh, Between today and tomorrow, we're going to be tackling some topics that, unfortunately, most um, don't want to hear about, or if they do, they want to hear the modern version of it. They want to hear the um, socialite version of it. They want to hear what man's concept of it is. They don't want to hear the truth of it. So, agree with me or not on this topic. It's up to you, and that's fine either way. Um, it is what it is. You can think how you think, believe what you believe. But I'm going to show you from where I'm coming from biblically, where I believe what I'm saying is accurate enough to warrant some, at least, looking at it. So, good morning and welcome to everybody. Marriage. And what's the purpose of it? The reason this came about in my mind was because of all this um, debauchery and disgusting behavior of the so-called Pride Month, and the giving over, at least in name, of this sacred union to the perversion of homosexuality. Um, if some don't want to hear it, they don't want to hear it. But this month is trash, and the people who celebrate it are just as bad. Um, you don't deserve to be heard, seen at all if you support this so-called Pride Month. You need to shut up, have a seat in a corner, and be silent. No one needs to hear from you. Your message is one of hate. Your message is one of anti God, and you do not deserve to be heard or seen. Your sexual orientation is not worthy of any airtime, of being listened to, being followed, any of the sort. No one should be proud of anything related to the LGBTQ community at all. There's nothing to be proud of. You should be ashamed of yourself and you should turn. Those are facts. There's nothing proudful about it at all. You should have zero pride in being gay. Just want you to understand that. None at all. And this topic of marriage is not for you. You are not married. If you and another man and you're male are so called married, you are not married. You live together, and mankind told you that you have a ring on your finger and some paperwork, but you are not married. If you're two women and you say you're not married, because marriage is not for you. You were never meant to be married. The union that's called marriage is not for homosexuals. Plain and simple. I don't care what you want to call it, you're not married. You have a piece of paper by stupid human beings who gave it to you to make you have the intentional idea that you might be have some kind of union under God. God does not bless that. It is not blessed. It is not sanctioned. You will never, ever, ever, ever have the okay from God for what you call marriage. It's not marriage. It's something completely other, but it ain't marriage. Let's get that first out the way. So if you come across this and you're gay and you're married, that's not what you actually are. You're unioned by man. Hope we're clear on that part. And call this hate all you want, then fine. I hate you. If that's how you want to feel it, feel that way. Don't really care how you feel. Really don't. Marriage was created and ordained by God, not by man. Man don't get to dictate what marriage is. That's not man's job. That's God's job. From the very beginning, he brought woman from man to man. Ever since, the union was for three reasons. The union was to fulfill in kind the hierarchy that God has in place in his kingdom, procreation, and physical appeasement. What man has done is completely flipped it on its head. Flipped it on the head. Man has taken marriage to start with sexual appeasement and end with sexual appeasement. They rarely bring God into it. Hence why you can see people accepting the concept of gay marriage because it has everything to do with sexual stuff. It has nothing to do with what the original concept and the only concept of marriage is. It is there to exemplify on a human level the hierarchy of God. It is there to procreate humankind and for a healthy avenue for sexual release, plain and simple. So we'll be touching on each of them. We'll touch on each of them. When Adam, we'll touch on him first. The Lord God took the man, this is in Genesis 2, by the way, and put him in the Garden of Eden to work and keep it. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, You may surely eat of every tree of the garden, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for in the day that you eat it, you shall die. And the Lord said, It is not good that a man should be alone. I will make him a helper fit for him. Now out of the ground the Lord formed every beast of the field and every bird of the heavens, and brought them to the man to see what he would call them. And whatever the man called every living creature, that was its name. The man gave names to all the livestock, the birds of heaven, the beasts of the field. But for Adam there was not found a helper fit for him. So the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon the man. And while he slept, took one of his ribs, closed up the flesh. And the rib that the Lord God had taken from the man, he made into a woman and brought to him. And the man said, This at last is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken from man. Therefore a man shall leave his mother and his father, and hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And the man and his wife were both naked, and they were not ashamed. Okay? Now, two things I found quite interesting in this particular sequence of events. Adam was simply doing what he was supposed to be doing. He had a chore. And as a man, he was taking care of exactly what God told him to take care of, the garden. He had a list of things to do. God saw that it was not good for him to be alone. God saw that while Adam was doing what God told him to do. Here is what has always been true about God. When he sets you on a pathway to do something and you do it, he takes care of the rest. He even tells you, seek first what? The kingdom, and what? All else will be added to you. Don't worry about me. He always tells you what to do first. And when you fulfill that, the rest takes care of himself. Adam was doing exactly what he was supposed to be doing. God saw and fulfilled something. He brought the woman to Adam. He made Adam rest. These are all very important little things people might be missing. Little things, but they're big. This is a message to the men side of things, okay? Listen, talk to the men real quick. Because I'll give you an example of where men are now versus what they should be. As to the reason why everything is so topsy turvy today. Man was doing what he was supposed to be doing, what he was supposed to be doing, because God told him to do something. He was doing it. God saw he needed help. God arranged the help. God made him rest while he did what he had to do to get the help. God brought the help to him and made provisions as to how the rest of life was supposed to go. God did that, not man. Hence why marriage is God's authority to change and make and decide, not man. Not man. Um, so we have that portion done. Women, your character. Let's talk about that now. Now that we have what the man was supposed to be doing, let's talk about you. A wife of noble character who can find she is worth far more than rubies. Her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. She selects wool and flax and works with eager hands. She is like a merchant. She's like the merchant ships bringing her food from afar. She gets up while it's still night and she provides food for her family and portions for her servants. She considers a field and buys it. Get rid of this little banner here. Not quite sure that keeps popping up every time. This goes on for a while, telling people what a wife does. What a wife does. It never says anything about her seeking out a husband. You want to know how far off we've come? You want to know where the movement of the church has taken where the world was 15, 20 years ago? She is already a wife and doing certain things, which means that she was doing these things before she became a wife, but she never went out seeking to be a wife. The husband finds. The way the husband finds is by abiding in what God told him to do while God brings her near. You see, we've gotten this thing completely off its track because what we don't do anymore is follow what God said. See, what we've now seen marriage as is how can that person help me out financially? How can that person do this? How can that person do that? How can that? I am getting to decide this now. This is for me to decide. I need to find this quality in my husband. I need to find this quality in my wife. Instead of saying, I need to have these qualities before God, and God takes care of everything else. Why? Because we don't trust God. Why would you trust somebody you don't know? Why would you? Why would you trust somebody you don't know? You don't know God. That's why you can't trust him. You would never entrust him to that. He wouldn't pick the way you want him to pick. He wouldn't pick the way you want him to pick. Do you want to know who has the ear of women and men today? You want to know how far the world has come where people listen to what they listen to? I want you to just listen to this real quick. And yes, I know what you're about to hear is not a Christian point of view. But unfortunately, Christians aren't listening to a Christian point of view. This is the point of view they're listening to, except they tried to make it seem a little more clean. Listen up.
Could he possibly like me more than his girlfriend? And could I possibly be dumb to think that it's more than
What gender are you asking this question to? He might absolutely like you more than his girlfriend. That do not mean he want to be with your. That don't mean he's ever intending to wife your. Because your girl can get on your goddamn nerves, but I still notice who I want to be with. She's just getting on my nerves right now, and I don't like her. I love her, though, but I happen to like you. You know what I'm saying? Because in the midst of my difficulty with my partner, you was willing to squeeze yourself in. You didn't even try to take up space. You know what I'm saying? You was willing to fit into my life exactly the way I needed you to fit in. You feel me? I can like you right where you at. You don't want no more? You ain't asking for shit? Hell yeah, I like you. You mean I get to still go home to my girl? Yes, I like you a lot. I'm going to talk to you.
You want to know why the world is the way it is? Now, mind you, that particular group on stage is part of a whole nother thing that they now call the manosphere. You've heard of that before. And women who want to have money instead of anything else or character. Men who want to have tradable females instead of character. That's the world now that your children, if you have young ones, are going to be growing up in. The world of, there's a channel around called Lapif, right? And all they do all day is talk about how men and women should interact, and every statement out of their stupid faces is a way to destroy marriage, because they have zero concept of what a man is and what a woman is, and they have absolutely no concept of what marriage is. They believe that a marriage is how much you can pay to keep the other person happy, how much you can do to keep the other person happy. The other person's happiness is marriage. And when the other person doesn't make you happy, that obviously leaves you room to do whatever you want to get happy. The excuse. Because it's all about being happy. That person makes me happy. Not that person is a woman after God's heart, or that man's a man after God's heart. No, they make me happy. That's marriage now. Find someone that makes you happy. Find someone that charms you off your feet. Find someone that knows you. Find someone that this, find someone. Never do you hear find someone that loves God and God only. We never hear leave it to God. Why? Because we don't trust him. We don't trust God. What does God know? Just because he created marriage doesn't mean that he knows what he's talking about. The hierarchy was made, and this is part of what they don't want. They don't want the true hierarchy of what the kingdom is, where God's the head, man follows, woman follows, children follow. They don't want that. Why? Because if that were what was actually what they were given, what they want goes out the window. And we can honestly say that what man wants supersede what God has in plan. Why do you think they were able to change marriage from a man and woman to a homosexual union? Why do you think that is? Hmm? Why do you think that is? In Hebrews 13, let marriage be held in honor among all, and it is not anymore. And let the marriage bed be undefiled, for God will judge the sexually immoral and the adulterous. Do you remember when you said, Paul said it would be better if you guys never married, but I understand, but I don't want you guys giving over to fleshly desires. And if you can't do that, stay unmarried. That's in 1 Corinthians 1, right? He says, it is good for a man not to touch a woman. Nevertheless, because of sexual immorality, let each man have his own wife, and let each woman have her own husband. Let the husband render to his wife the affection due her, and likewise also the wife to her husband. Now, this is the part I'm going to touch on that's going to piss off a lot of people, because what you're going to hear is that there are certain things that are sinful sexually, and they're not talking about homosexuality. They're talking about between husband and wife. Now, I want you to listen carefully to what it says. If you say you believe the book, right? If you say you believe the book, if that's what you say you believe, I want to make sure that when you say that, what you're going to read, you actually believe. Okay? All right. Now, listen, this is not me, okay? This is the book that you guys say you believe. Let the husband render to the wife the affection due her, and likewise also the wife to her husband. The wife does not have authority over her own body, but the husband does. And likewise, the husband does not have authority over his own body, but the wife does. Do not deprive one another, except with consent for a time, that you may give yourself to fasting and prayer and come together again, so that Satan does not tempt you because of your lack of self control. But I say this as a concession, not as a commandment. For I wish that all men were even as myself, but each one has his own gift from God, one in this manner and one in that. But I say to the unmarried and the widow, it is good for them if they if they remain as I am. But if they cannot exercise self-control, let them marry. For it is better to marry than to burn with passion. As he said, not a command. But listen carefully. Listen carefully. When God made Adam, he said, it's good, not good that he's alone. I want to find somebody for him. Every other animal has their own. But for Adam, no. I'm going to make one that fits him perfectly. You see, this is part of why we wait for God, okay? I don't want to hear, well, my husband wants more things than I want. If you had waited, if trust was a part of your mission to begin with, you would never have been in the situation. When you jump out ahead of God, you end up in a situation where you find all kinds of problems. So don't hand me this, oh, my husband wants sex more than I want, and my wife wants sex more than I do, or my wife wants sex less than I do. I don't want to hear that crap. You were the one that picked. You didn't want to wait. You didn't want to trust God to give you the one that would fit you. No, you want to pick what you want to pick. So deal with what you got now. See, now what you have to work with is a handing over of stuff. What happens when you don't trust him? You put yourself behind the 8 ball. You put yourself behind the 8 ball. Listen carefully. The wife doesn't have authority over her body. The husband does. The husband doesn't have authority over his body, but the wife does. So you picked what you picked. Guess what? That's yours now. And whatever your spouse wants physically, they get. You want to understand the other side of marriage? This is the other side of marriage. Little too much? It says specifically that there are certain things that marriage fulfills. The biggest one is an outlet to fight one of the strongest and most invasive temptations out there, and that's of the sexual nature. You want to know how valuable marriage is? Marriage is so valuable that every other ungodly institution seeks to not only usurp it, but remove it. You ever wonder why? You ever wonder why that they go after the most sacred of unions? Because they have to. It is one of the ones that has to have God's stamp on it for it to work. Has to. When you get married to somebody and you've waited for God to pick that somebody, sex is not a problem. Money ain't the problem. Why? Because none of that was the focus point to begin with. He will match you with somebody that will equal whatever you have going on and vice versa, because he knows. He picks one that fits you. He picks one that fits you. The drive you have, he'll find one that fits it. This is the value of waiting. This is the value of letting him do what he's got to do. When we don't, we encounter trust me, I'm speaking from experience about picking for myself and having dealt with my stupidity. I'm not speaking down to anybody. But we have a very, very crazy view about marriage that needs to be absolutely flipped. Marriage is not about how pretty you find a girl or how hot you find a guy. It's not about his family. You know why? Because you're supposed to leave your mother and father. You ever thought about that? How the emphasis has now become in laws? You know what happened the last time marriage included in laws? You get Laban kind of things going on. You see why you separate from the fathers and the mothers? You see why? Because the instant you leave them involved in it, what happens? These stories are all out there for people to watch, but no, in-laws have become the thing now. You're marrying into a family, they say. No, you're not. Technically, you're not. At all, you're not. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. No. No, 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 no. It doesn't even remotely say that. When you marry, all other influences on that union cease. You leave all of that family crap over there. They don't have any say, input into your marriage anymore. They don't have an input in your nothing. That is no longer theirs. That union is between you, your spouse, and God. Period. Leave mother, father. Pretty cut and dry. But no, what we want is to have mother-in-law and father-in-law there and have them always involved in. No! That's how trouble starts. Because you know what ends up happening? You leave to go get advice from a man versus God. Now, man steps in to solve your problem, not God. Am I saying that in laws are inconsequential to your marriage? They're there, they're family still. They are not who you're married to. Wives shouldn't be going running to their fathers for help. Husbands shouldn't be going running to their mothers for help. It depends. It creates a dependency on man versus God. Plain and simple. Can God use someone to speak life into you about your marriage? Of course. But the first person you should go to is not man, it's God. We've gone so far away from that. The purpose of marriage is for mankind to participate in what a small measure of union with God looks like, feels like, to experience it. For his hierarchy to at least make some tangible sense in your life. It is also there as a very huge failsafe for people to have an outlet to avoid sexual sin. Your spouse is there for that purpose, which makes it an amazingly beautiful thing. Because when you approach this thing correctly, you will have no desire for nobody else. Why? Because no one else out there will do what your spouse will do. No one else out there will fulfill you the way your spouse can. There is none of this, I won't do that. I won't do that. Because you've understood that the hierarchy says you are no longer yours. Pretty simple stuff. I understand that a lot of this concept is not spoken from the pulpit. You know why? Because we, as believers, have become scared. The world is more than happy to introduce sexual stuff to our kids through books in the schools. And the church is afraid to speak to husband and wives about the awesomeness about marriage as a way to escape that. They refuse to preach on the hierarchy, and so by help children to understand how things are solved. They don't want to deal with that. The marriage bed is undefiled because you don't bring the things of the outworld into it. Whatever takes place in your bedroom between you and your spouse takes place between you and your spouse only. And no one, literally no one, should know about it. No one. So, whatever desires you two have, that's between you two. Your body's not yours. Her body's not hers. His body's not his. And it's that way for a purpose. The purpose is because we are still in this coil of flesh. And one of the strongest desires out there is the sexual drive. There's a reason why the push right now is that, because it's one of the easiest, because the human body naturally goes through a sexual change just as part of its movement from childhood to adulthood. That's a natural progression. It's so built into the human function that it is part of our puberty growth. It's part of us. There are things on the human body that naturally react to almost nothing happening to it. Just keep that in mind. It is one of the most base reactions to things. And all of that gets solved in marriage. Once the sequence is followed correctly, man follows what God has planned for him, God picks. Woman follows what God has planned for her, and God picks. The union between the two, when God sets it up, works. But no, our version of marriage is here's my criteria. Then I have to ask the woman, what do you bring to the table? I got to ask the man, are you going to provide and have 4 jobs and be able to pay this, this, and this for me and establish this kind of lifestyle for me? Instead, what you should be doing is telling your young boys to pursue God first and foremost, and he will take care of the rest. Tell your girls, pursue God first and foremost, and he will take care of the rest. Whether you're to be married or not be married, he decides that, not you. You have a desire to be a wife, a desire to be a mother. That's good. Now you ask him, does this fit into your desire? I can tell you this, 2%. A marriage is not a piece of paper. A marriage is a vow made between man and woman before God. And that union is only really, really recognized as him when he picks it. Can he work in a destroyed situation? Of course he can work in a destroyed situation. Can he work in a situation where I picked and messed it up? Of course he can. But when you establish that dysfunction as the way it's supposed to function, you're going to keep establishing more dysfunction. It is not for God to work in turmoil. It is for us to work in God to avoid said turmoil, especially when the turmoil is avoidable. It's not even stuff that we have to step into. It's not even stuff that you have to be, you're cursed to make. This is stuff we choose. Marital turmoil is one of the only ones we have chosen to be dwelling in. That's how crazy it is. You literally choose to be the most miserable version of yourself when you pick marriage. And then you expect God to just fix it because, God's good. Meanwhile, you want him to fix it, holding on to your exact same stance that caused the crap to begin with. You don't want to relinquish. No. You made the decision. Now you want him to solidify your choice. Because if he gets up the next day and he says, you know what? No, you pick this. I'm going to need you to stop doing blah, blah, blah. And the stuff that he's asking you to stop is the stuff you've held on as yourself. You're going to rebel. And you know what you're going to say? God ain't working. God ain't working. You don't want to look at yourself and say, you know what? I put myself here. I did this. And if I want this to work the way God wants it to work, I'm going to have to start listening to what he wants me to do. And since I'm married, now listen, women, and if that means now that I'm married, that means I have to relinquish what I want for what my husband wants. That's what I have to do. Because that's what you've entered into his idea of marriage, not yours. Marriage has a hierarchy. Remember that. It has a hierarchy. Head of wife, husband, which means you are to submit to him. That's your role. Forget what his role is. Your role is submission. It didn't say if he follows God. It says submission. You picked. Now remember, this is one you picked. Don't get mad at me for telling you what you got to do because you picked this. You picked this. You took your time and picked it. Whatever the situation is, you picked it. As dumb as you might have been when you picked it, you still picked it. Your job now, if you want to follow God, is submission. Husbands, if she's cantankerous and loud and she don't listen, you picked this. You did. You didn't wait for God. You did it. Your job is to follow God. That means you have to love your wife as she is. You picked it. You did. Your stupidity did this, not God's. Your job now, when you realize your folly, is to do what your job is, which is to follow God. So I don't want anybody telling me I'm coming after women only. If you fools pick what you pick, stick with what you picked. Don't blame God. Blame yourself. But if you are trying to now correct course, you're in it now. Fix it as is. Next, you're going to hear somebody say, but my husband beats me. You picked it. Sounds calloused? I don't care if it sounds calloused. You didn't pick it? You didn't choose that person? You didn't see the red flags and ignored it because you like something else? I'm not going to look, don't ask me to feel bad for your decision making. That was your decision making. Don't ask me to feel bad. And don't say I condone husbands beating wives either. I'm saying you picked what you picked and you're now dealing with the consequences of your choices. That's all I am saying. It really is that. I don't know how this is difficult. We like to run from our choices and pass it off as something else. I didn't know. I didn't see. No, you saw. You don't lie to yourself. First of all, stop lying to yourself. Stop lying to yourself. You saw. You just thought one of two things. It's not that bad, or I can fix it. And if I'm lying, please tell me. You thought it's not that bad, or I can fix this. And when you realize you can't, he will make a way of escape from sin, from your sin, and avoiding temptation and sin. You picked. You see, when you go, let me clarify this for you, Leila. When you go to God asking him for a way out of a decision you made while entering into a covenant that he created, you're going hoping his answer suits your wishes. How about we change it to, hey, God, your will be done in spite of my decision making? Not I want out. No, I want you to have your will done despite my stupid choices in people. Do what you need to do to make this union work for you. Not get me out of this. No. You picked. If now you see the light, you tell him, I need you to make this a godly union. And whatever you have to do to make this a godly union, I'm with. And as long as it takes you to make this a godly union, I'm with. But let's not act like we don't make these decisions for ourselves now. Come on now. That's the very first thing. You got to start fessing up to the stupid stuff we do. We do a lot of dumb stuff and hope God fixes it. Like he's some kind of mechanic or a genie or something. We go completely against his will and then hope we walk back in, he'll just fix it for. No! There are consequences. The same way David found out the hard way, there are consequences. For as much as he was remorseful, he still had a consequence to deal with, and that was the death of that child. We don't want to hand stuff over to God. We want him to fix it on our terms. We want him to kowtow to our will. We want him to do what we want him to do. We don't want to do what he wants. We want him to do what we want. And when we don't get that, God don't exist, or God's not listening, or God can't hear me. No, you're not listening to him. I don't care what you think about your choices in men. Your choice will never be as effective as God's choice. Never. But when you're impatient, you pick. And you go against the purpose of marriage. Because when you wait for him to pick, he'll pick someone that exemplifies the union and the hierarchy of God's kingdom. He will pick for you someone that you will want to and can procreate with when needed, if necessary, if he chooses. Because remember, he picks. Children may not be in the cards for you. And he will pick someone that's your equal in your desires. Sexually, he will pick that person for you. Because his union is one that exemplifies exactly what we need. And he will gather for himself the people that he knows and that goes together for the union that exemplifies him. Marriage shows God, which is why homosexuals cannot get married. Because that doesn't show God. I don't care what man's laws are. I don't care what man's feelings are. I don't care. You can call it marriage all you want, but understand by God's definition, because it's his union, it's his creation, it's not marriage. A man and a woman can even get married and say they're married, and it's not marriage. Say like two Satanists get married, you're not married. You might be in a blend of two people, but you're not married. You cannot participate in something that belongs to somebody you hate. It ain't gonna work. Because you know what? He created it for what he wanted it to be for. You don't get to participate in it. You can call it what you want, but it is not what he created. Plain and simple. I don't need man to define marriage between a man and a woman. That's not for man to decide anyway. It was never man to decide that. So why would I be listening to man when he tries to change it? He's not changing anything. He might be making a brand new creation, but it's not marriage. It's not marriage. So men, it behooves us to stay pursuing God. What's the question? It behooves us to stay pursuing God. It is the only way, for one, if you're single, to find and have the right spouse, and two, if you are married, to be the good husband. Women, your only hope is to allow God to do what he needs to do. Stay pursuing God. And when he has someone for you, he will present you to them. The same way, just like he said in the Bible about us being his bride, and he's going to present his bride, it's the same way. You have to wait for him. If you really, 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 look, if you really, really want marriage to work for you, let the one who instituted it pick. Let him pick. If we choose the wrong person to marry, does God relent his will for who he had in order to come into agreement with the person we choose, all to make it right? I do not believe that. Like I said, I think he can work within our trouble and change our mindsets to accept that this is what I've chosen and make it work. It won't be the perfect one that he picked for you or he had chosen for you. But this is what you went away from. You went away from his will. Look, it's the same way like when Israel kept straying and he kept finding a way to bring them out of certain situations, and they kept straying and brought them out of situations. There was a pathway for them to be free, and every time they screwed up, he put them back on the right track in spite of the situation. Did they have the exact same blessings that they would have if they had stayed the course? No. Did he work within the confines of the disobedience? Yes. Because he also knew that there would be a screw up as well. This is where he says he has mercy on who he has mercy and grace on who he has grace. It's up to him. And he can work with whatever he wants to work with. He can. Or he can allow you to flounder. But none of the outcome, listen carefully, the outcome shouldn't be your goal. What you get out of turning to him is not your goal. Turning to him is your goal. This whole choosing wrong thing, and if you are of the thought that you may have chosen wrong because of a situation happening in there or problems, your only answer is not in what he can do to rectify it. The easiest rectification is you turning and handing it over to him. Not for a result you want, but for a result he wants. And since you don't know what that result is, you can't be hoping for one. It really is that simple. You can't be hoping for something you don't know about. You just know his hands on it. That's all you need to know. If you are turning to him for his answer, because you don't know the answer, then you can't be going to him hoping for your answer. Because if it was your answer, you'd have solved the problem. but you don't know to solve. He does. And your only hand in this, if you want him to work, is for you to relinquish your wishes to him. Release it to, again, that's all I'm going to tell you. I don't care about the unequally. If you find yourself unequally yoked, your only solution is to turn yourself, forget what the other person, turn yourself to him and let him do what he has to do the way he wants to do it, without you wishing the end, without you hoping for a result, without you don't put your stamp on it, because if you did, you would have fixed it already. If you're screwed up, your only salvation is just turning back to him and just doing what he told you to do. That's it. Not doing it, hoping he'd do something, not doing something, because you just follow God. You spend time with him. Again, you are thinking about the end result. Stop. Who cares? Stop. That's what I mean. You're not turning it over. If the end result you knew, you wouldn't go to him. And if you keep speculating on what he will do, you don't trust him. It doesn't matter the end. It doesn't matter the end. The end result is for him to pick. Your job is to turn to him, period, point blank, and do what he has been asking you to do. And what he's always asked us to do is to put him first. He will take care of the rest. Our problem has always been distrust. We do not trust the man. We don't. We constantly go to him with a hope that he will answer the way we want. Look, I know you're just asking a question. I get it. But understand this, if you go to him with all these caveats in the back of your mind, you are not trusting him. You are going to him with worry and concern. You are not going to him with trust. And you have to go to him with trust. You have to. Fixing it is putting it in his hands. And I said that right after I said fix it. The only person that can fix any kind of poor choice is God. And you know how you fix that? Turning to him. I said right after that, men, your job, go to the author. Women, your job, follow God. That's the only way you can solve any problem, from marriage to problems in the workplace to children. The only solve is just turning your gaze to him and letting him deal with what he needs to deal with, because all of the problems stem from a heart issue, and the only person that can change your heart is God. Not counseling, none of that. God. We keep going. I know he said present your requests. Present your requests. And whatever you ask in my name, and we've covered this, if it's not in his will, it's not going to get done. And the only way to know his will is to leave him to do his will. You have to abide in the fact that he will have his will. Let him have his will. Marriage is hard when you try to do it yourself. It's so hard when you try to do it yourself. Which is why he tells you not to. It tells you not to. Don't. 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 That is using man's methods. Again, it's still using man's methods to try and attain something godly. Never will work, never has worked. You may have a fairly functional marriage, but you will never have an extraordinary marriage without God. You will never see the fullness of the kingdom without God. You'll never see the embodiment of the relationship that he wants to have with you if you don't have a marriage based in God. You're not going to see it. But again, if you guys don't believe this, then don't. It's okay. Struggle with what you got to struggle with. Do what you got to do. Tomorrow, we're going to tackle this Pride Week business. And I'll tell you now that it is not going to be a happy discussion for anyone who comes into the live that's pro LGBTQ. I'm going to say this right now. If you come into the room tomorrow and you are pro LGBTQ and you are pro Pride Month, understand this right off the top before anything else takes place. I have zero regard for your feelings. I have zero regard for your stance. I have zero respect for you. And all else that follows from what comes out of me and aimed at you, I have zero regret about. I just want to make sure that that is as clear as I can possibly make it. I do not care about your feelings when it comes to tomorrow's topics. He didn't say it was better. He said he wishes all men were like him. He said it is better to be married than to burn with passion. He did not say it was better for you to be single. And for those men who are anxious to get married, meaning that they were not born to be single, they have certain desires that fit marriage. I put in the chat a link for a video that I put up yesterday about Lonnie's project over in Uganda. He has a school out there, and I'm hoping to go visit it with him in October. That's the hope so far. We have to do a whole bunch of fundraising before then, but hopefully I can go. He wanted me to, he talked to me about something that he wanted to teach them about music and stuff like that and vocals. He plays a bunch of instruments, but vocally he wanted them to get some more lessons on that, and I said, well, I could definitely would like to try that. So we might be going over there to help the kids with some vocal stuff, and so hopefully it'll work out that way, but we'll see. um if you haven't watched it yet and you haven't gone to um listen and see what you can do, there's a link one more time in the chat there. It is also on my page if you want to go take a listen to it. And if you know someone that's a that helps a lot with um, mission work, send it on to them, and we can get them in touch with Lonnie, and we can hopefully get some more traction on this program. I think they're up to 200 students now. They managed to build an actual school. Um, so they're doing really good work over there. They got water and all that stuff, and we're trying to get more resources available so that the teachers can be paid, the students can have the books they need, and sponsorships and all that stuff. So hopefully things will work out where I can go. I had never been to Africa, so it'd be kind of fun. But that's a ways yet to go, another 4 months or so. So if you don't mind, please go check that video out, and see what it's about. If it's something that you can assist with, or you know someone that can assist with it, let me know, and I'll get them Lonnie's information. Okay. Again, tomorrow, that topic that's coming up is going to be very heavy, and some people will think I'm angry. Okay. He is not advising anyone to remain unmarried. Brooklyn, look, think what you want, bro. I don't care. I don't care. Think what you want. If you didn't listen to the whole thing, then I don't care. Whatever you think, bro, whatever. You want to think about men, think about men, think about women, think about women. I don't give two craps anymore, bro. Whatever. Really, whatever. Read it how you want. I don't care. I told you what I told you. I gave you my point of view. If you don't like it, don't like it. Be single or gay. I don't care. Whatever you do, you do. Right? Quit asking me questions. I've answered. The whole show was a question answered to that same statement. So whatever you believe at this point. Okay? I don't give a rat's behind. I really don't. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. Whatever. In either case, tomorrow's going to be rough for people. So prep, put on your big boy pants, and we will shut it down. We'll shut it down. Plain and simple, we'll shut it down. You know what, Brooklyn? Bye. I really ain't got no time to deal with you in this BS. Okay, I really don't. I ain't got time for people in this nonsense today. I already fired up about tomorrow. I banned him and removed all his comments. I really don't have no time to deal with homosexuals at this point. I really don't. They're already starting to come out because they're mad about what I'm going to talk about tomorrow. All these gays are going to come out. Just watch. They're going to come out in droves tomorrow. In any case, down below, if you guys are so led to help what's going on here at Straight Talk, feel free. It's down below. There are 2 options for it. And if not in some other way, feel free to do that as well. As always, you talk to the author first. For those who have bought merch, thank you. Hopefully you'll like it when you get it. Send me pictures if you don't mind of when you get your product. Let me know what it looks like, and so I can, I might be able to put that up on the YouTube channel so people can see. So if you did buy product and you have it already in hand, send me a screenshot, a picture of the merch so I can see what it's like. Okay, that'd be good, and I can put you guys up on the YouTube page. put you in the spotlight. Okay, let me know. We'll catch up tomorrow. Like I said, it's no holds barred tomorrow. I'm done. When I say I'm done with these people, I am done. Done. More likely it won't get monetized, but I really don't care. And someone has to say what they need to say. And I'm going to say it. So prep for that tomorrow. All right. Love you guys. Mean it. We'll see you guys today for the Savage Patriots. We'll be talking about, oddly enough, what is a woman? And Too Strong is on tonight with proof that Tupac was gay. So we're combating the theme of the month right off the top. Okay? We ain't playing games this time around. We're taking June back as a regular month. None of this gay pride nonsense. Ain't nothing proud about being gay. Nothing prideful about that. Or it is prideful, and that's why you are the way you are. So we're going to catch that tonight. So Too Strong at 8 o'clock. Savage Patriots at 6:30 Eastern. Okay? So we'll see you guys there. Wisdom calls to you from the street. Please, please, please find wisdom. Peace.
Hold tight, dreams, for if dreams die, rely on yourself in no way.